Today we're going to see what the fans consider to have been the worst episodes of Drag Race. While going through these, I will try to figure out why the fans that voted gave these episodes such low scores on IMDb, give some of my thoughts on the said episodes, and then, in the end, we'll try to draw a conclusion as to what makes an episode of Drag Race bad. Also, I am excluding all non-competitive episodes on Drag Race, so finales prior to Season 9, casting specials, clip shows, and reunited episodes, which were most episodes in the bottom 10 and bottom 20 rank-wise. Even though I'll be criticizing the episodes, no or possibly minimal negative criticism will go towards the queens, but even so, we're talking about them on the show, not in real life as real human people. All comments borderline attacking queens will be deleted, so please try not to be negative at all. Also, and again, not really a visual video, it's more just about me talking, but the runway looks that are going to be mentioned will be displayed, so you can take a peek when the time comes. Without any further ado, let's get into this bitch. In the last place, the last on this list, but like it's not the last, it's kind of like the best of the worst. Yeah, sure, okay, the best of the worst, according to the fans, is Season 2's Country Queens episode. Honestly, I don't know for sure why this episode is ranked so low, though 7.4 out of 10 is a pretty nice score still. If I had to guess, and that's kind of what I'm doing here, I could pinpoint some moments that the fans might not have enjoyed. The first thing that comes to mind is just how rude some of the queens were to Mystique, primarily Morgan, Raven, and Sonique, constantly making fun of her size, while Mystique never had a moment where she overcame the blatant bullying from the three queens. Next, and while we are still on Mystique, and since we are talking about poor choices coming from these episodes, I do have to mention her runway look. The runway theme was country realness. Of course, that sort of Western, Americana, plaid, cowboy boots, denim jeans, etc. type of an aesthetic, but Mystique wore this. Yeah. I mean, listen, I understood her reasoning behind wearing that, but you're on the runway. You're supposed to give some sort of a show. And even though the theme was country realness, you're supposed to give some kind of a fantasy. Another thing that maybe the fans held against the show was Katy and Jimmy not really getting that the acting in the two sketch commercials was supposed to not be so serious, and instructing the girls in that way. However, one thing that I bet some fans took into consideration when rating this episode were the placements. Do you remember who won this episode and who was in the bottom? Tyra won and Raven was in the bottom. Yeah, I think we were right to assume that some people had problems with this episode solely because of that. But yeah, I didn't really have problems with the episode other than the aforementioned bullying of Mystique. The next episode is Season 11's Monster Ball episode. Again, on the surface, there isn't anything inherently wrong with the episode, it's just a ball episode with shit ton of looks, which, if you remember, were mostly misses, with some weird judging as well. Weird in the sense that the winner of the challenge, Brooklyn Heights, didn't even have a monster look for the MILF, Monster I'd Like to Freak category, whereas queens like Plastique and Scarlett had all three categories down. Regardless of your or my personal taste, they did have these three categories down. Brooklyn did not. Maybe it's that, I don't know. I'm guessing it's on this list because of the very underwhelming performance by the entire cast. I do want to spill some tea, as the kiddies would say, about this episode and this episode's eliminated queen. So after this episode aired, after my review of it, Arielle Versace felt hurt. I assume that somebody was criticizing her underwhelming performance on the show, the person being me, especially right after the airing of the episode when she was eliminated, and when she ate complete shit while slipping during the bottom 2 lip sync. Which is understandable. Arielle commented on the said video, basically making fun of me / attacking me for being poor, for being incompetent to share my opinion and even to have it and whatnot. But she also revealed that the queens were told to bring a sexy blank costume for the first category, which she didn't even do, and that they renamed it afterwards. I deleted her comment because she basically contradicted herself a lot and was really nasty, and I don't fuck with that. But I did send a screenshot of the comment to Jake Yonsei when he was making his video on Arielle, so maybe he still has it, I deleted it too, I don't know, but back to the topic of this video. In the 8th spot, we have Season 7's Spoof There It Is episode, aka the episode where Pearl sent Trixie home, or as many fans would say, the episode where RuPaul chose Pearl over Trixie. I don't think we have to go further into discussion of this episode. We know how poorly the fans responded to Trixie's first time getting eliminated, though, if you ask me, both of them should have been eliminated. That lip sync was not it. Did anything else bad happen in this episode? I don't think so, I don't remember. Enlighten me if I'd forgotten something. Season 11 is back on this list with the LADP episode. Firstly, this episode happened right after Brooke and Evie's insane lip sync to Sorry Not Sorry, so the expectations were kind of high. Pair that up with the fact that maybe not the most likable or deserving queen won Snatch Game, and add on to it the fact that we didn't get an elimination, the fans were going into the episode with high expectations and with needing something satisfactory to happen. And it did not. Firstly, Drag Race had a random moment of putting a pair that worked together in the bottom 2, even though one or the other didn't deserve the set placement, and even though a pair did not win the Maxi Challenge, a single person did, while another queen more than deserved to be in the bottom 2, given her horrendous runway look, and her portraying the exact same character for every single challenge and never getting called out on it. I know what some of you are going to say, but Plastique also did the same character of a stereotypical Asian and did the voice for every challenge, so why aren't you criticizing her? I mean, true, that's correct, but she was called out on it. And you know what else? That's not a character. As someone whose first language is not English, and as someone whose first language isn't even a Germanic language, I don't need to be talking this way. This is not natural for me. Talking like this is very natural to me, with the phonemes, accentuation, and syntax of my mother tongue is what is natural. So take this accent, imagine if it wasn't an Indo-European language's accent, and you will get Plastique's situation. If you don't get this and think that Plastique's at fault here, it's either not your fault because you're just not interested in learning more than one language, there's no need for you to learn another one, or you're just slightly racist. Pair all what I just said with the fact that Plastique, a fan favorite, got eliminated this episode, and you get a rating like this. Season 11 doesn't seem to want to leave this list, because the next episode in question is the Queens Everywhere, Quick Queens Everywhere episode. I did not watch this episode. I know the results, I know what happened, but I cannot comment much on it. All I can say is that somebody was favored yet again. Vanessa was kept throughout the season just for her to lose a lip sync to Brooke in this episode, even though after like 4 episodes into the season Vanessa started underperforming. And the worst travesty of all, Brooklyn Heights, just for storyline reasons, I'm assuming, I don't know, again I didn't watch the episode, was put into the bottom 2 for the second time, ensuring that even with one of the strongest track records in Drag Race history, she couldn't win the season. We're taking a break from season 11 and going to Breast World, that's right, season 10. There's a repeating pattern here of a queen who does okay or abysmally bad and yet still gets saved somehow and never critiqued, whereas the queens that try a lot, are critiqued a lot, and happen to be liked by the fans get fucked, and not in a good way. Firstly, we had an awful mini challenge with the pit crew, sexploitation for no reason than to sexploit people, which I have a problem with. You may not, that's totally cool, but I wanted to bring it up just because moments like these on Drag Race always make me want to take a bath. The Maxi Challenge was no better. It was a confused and confusing acting challenge with poor writing, so a Drag Race acting challenge. The judging and critiques the queens got for their performances were really bad as well. The one that still sticks out to me is the one they gave Cameron. So, Cameron's character had this moment of revelation in the sketch that queer people are no different to non-queer people, and then had a monologue. A poorly written one, a basic one, which she, not an actress, delivered quite okay, but then she was critiqued because she didn't have this dramatic, Meryl Streep-esque performance that should move the audience and make them feel hopeful and good, and it's like, well, maybe it wasn't Cameron's fault. The runway was kind of the only good part of this episode. I mean, just look at Aquaria's, Asia's, Cameron's, and Monet's looks. But even there, the judging was just mind-numbingly stupid. Aquaria was basically told like, oh, you little kids thinking old women can look like that and can be cool and stylish and can have tattoos. Oh, you kids, you're such stupid morons, kill yourselves. And Asia and Monet's clearly joke outfits were met with, I don't see much glamour in that. The rotten cherry on the rotten top came with the bottom two lip sync between Eureka and Cameron. Eureka, after spending most of her time with her back turned towards the cameras and the judges, and inexplicably doing a split on every third beat of the song, was saved, even though Cameron came out and killed her in the lip sync. Aquaria was right to have been pissed about the fact that there was a double Shantae this episode. Oh, what a surprise! We're back in season 11. The episode in question is the Drag Race Kadabra episode. I really don't think that I have to talk a lot about this episode. We all know the bullshit that happened here. Essentially, Sugarcane, somebody who did better than 4 other girls in the Maxi Challenge and who actually had a caftan runway unlike 2 other queens, was put into the bottom 2 and eliminated. Excluding the mini challenge, which again was complete foolishness, up until the judging and the placements, this episode was good. Well, okay, no. Up until Vanessa's team's magic show, the episode was really good. But then it just fell apart. What with Evie's, Vanessa's, Silky's, and Akira's poor performances as a group and individually, to the placements of the queens and the fact that no reason was given for any of the nonsense that happened. The last third or quarter of the episode was awful. We at least got 2 really nice looks on the runway, but oh my god, what a shit show. In the third spot, we have the Drag Lympics episode. Season 11 reigns supreme as the fans' least favorite season, I see. I'm gonna be honest, I think this episode is ranked so low only because of the elimination of Scarlet Envy, which is understandable from the point of the fans liking her, her being an okay contestant, and Nina West looking like this on the runway and not being in the bottom 2 with either Raj or Scarlet. But from every other point of view, her elimination kinda made sense. But yeah, the fans were outraged, and I think that's the only reason why this episode is here. For me though, the actual Maxi Challenge is very dumb. Though the worst part of the episode for me was the mini challenge. I don't want to talk about it. The second place is reserved for the Evil Twins episode from season 10. This episode has so many wrong things with it, and it's my least favorite episode of all time, closely followed by pretty much every Makeover episode. So, the story of the episode is set up to be about Cameron, primarily, and her more or less being defeated by being in the bottom 2 episodes in a row, saying that her mental state is not really at its best, that she's feeling really down, that she's doubting herself a lot, and that she's kind of tired of the competition. This last sentiment was also shared by Ms. Cracker, who had won the previous episode's Maxi Challenge. Speaking of the competition, the mini challenge had the queens, and I quote, drag up pancakes to create devastatingly delicious dishes, which isn't just very stupid, nonsensical, confusing, it also was very hard to watch given that the joke machine was making fat and eating jokes every 5 seconds. Now, throw into this whole mess a Maxi Challenge where the already exhausted queens have to present to the judges 2 looks each in a very Makeover episode-esque style, but they're making over themselves kind of. And they just had the Makeover challenge the episode prior, so they're very exhausted, which is why 3 of the 5 queens just chose to wear for their evil looks their prehistoric runway looks, which did not end up being a runway team, while 1 ended up wearing 2 Cher from Clueless-esque costumes but in different colors. The queens also had to, essentially, bare their souls, their insecurities, or mental health problems to the audience, while presenting them as quirky stories. What's worse, they had to write that stuff about themselves and then record narration for when they walked the runway as their evil twins, or inner saboteurs, as Rue would say. Throughout the episode, we had Rue telling girls that the only way they can overcome their personal problems, mental health issues, was by beating their inner saboteurs. That's right, ladies. You don't have depression. That's your inner saboteur telling you that you have depression. Depression is not real, you dumbass bitch. That's your inner saboteur telling you, not me. Good fucking god, they really air this. All of this is already a problem in itself, given that the bottom 2 queens were the 2 queens that many times throughout the season said that they had problems with their mental health. And now, when they were at their most exhausted, they had to use that to please the judges. Cameron Michaels and Miss Cracker were also critiqued for not going deep enough with their self-criticism. Yeah, all of that happened. Pair all this up with the fact that a fan favorite in Miss Cracker was eliminated, and you get one of the worst episodes of Drag Race. but not the worst according to the fans. I do have to remind you that we did get 2 cool as fuck runway looks from Aquaria and Asia, and we also got Aquaria telling RuPaul that she didn't give a fuck about what he had to say. How fitting. According to the fans, the worst episode of Drag Race ever was the makeover episode of season 11. Oh god, where do I start? Coming into the episode right after Suga's elimination, the fans needed something good to happen in the episode, and nothing good happened. Literally not a single thing. Sure, we got Daddy Honey Davenport, but that's so minuscule compared to all the bad in this episode. Before we even hit the runway, we got the bullying of Soju from none other than Silky at that, and good 5 minutes that was just about Arielle's wigs, a storyline on Drag Race that nobody ever cared about. With the fact that this is a makeover challenge, we know right off the bat that the judging is going to be weird. Sometimes the judges like it when queens wear the same looks but in different patterns or colors. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they'd rather appreciate same colors and patterns but in different styles. Sometimes they wouldn't. Sometimes they just love copy-paste same looks, while sometimes they prefer 2 completely different looks. The 4 queens that weren't at the bottom 2 all went with more or less the similar idea or similar looks when it came to their and their partners' presentations on the runway, but 2 of them were critiqued for it, while the other 2 were praised for it. The bottom 2 that we got in this episode was the deserving bottom 2. That's the only thing that I can say made sense in this episode. What didn't make sense, however, was the outcome of the lip sync. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time talking about it, we all know the situation. Out of the 4 possible outcomes of the lip sync, the least logical one of Silky staying and Nina going happened. I don't have to tell you how bad this episode was. You remember. So, what can we conclude? The worst episodes of Drag Race, or rather the episodes that the fans like the least, are the ones where there's heavy production, whether it comes to the judging or setups of the challenge. It's no surprise that most of the episodes on this list come from seasons 10 and 11, the 2 seasons that pushed so hard for Eureka and Silky respectively to A, be liked by fans, and B, win the season so the show would get bonus points with the SJWs. While throwing to the side queens that were actually versatile, listened to the judges' critiques, and applied them and were naturally likable. And of course, the elimination of a well-liked queen will get the fans riled up, though, and as we've seen here, most of those eliminations were not the fairest. Drag Race works the best when it lets the fans think for themselves, when it doesn't treat us like idiots, and when it doesn't try to pull a stunt for the sake of a stunt.